Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you might be on planet Earth, and welcome to the July 26th episode of Let's Get SASE. This is your one-stop shop for everything SASE from your friends at Cisco. I'm John, and I'll be your SASE MC for this episode. If you like a good technical discussion, you are going to love today's episode, Solving Private Access. Every organization has private applications that they don't want to expose to the world for various reasons, mostly security reasons. Today we're going to dig into how SASE can help your organization straighten out the tangled web of private application access. So buckle up. But first, the news. Welcome back to the Let's Get SASE news segment. We're glad you made it. In this week's acquisition news, Cisco has announced the close of our acquisition of ArmorBlocks. As you may already know, ArmorBlocks brings state-of-the-art capabilities in the field of email security with a focus on AI to the Cisco product portfolio. This should fill in an already robust security offering from Cisco and secure one of the most common vectors of attack, email. Welcome to the Cisco Fold ArmorBlocks. Coming up August 5th through 10th is the Black Hat Security Conference in Las Vegas. Cisco is a sustaining partner of Black Hat and will have a sizable presence at the show, including being the SOC for the show, which is a big honor. If you plan to be there, stop by and check out our booth, where we will have lots of product demos and security professionals from Talos and other parts of the business who can help you along your threat management and overall security journey. Should be a great show. In this week's Talos Spotlight, we invite you to have a look at the Talos Incident Response Center. If you are experiencing a security breach, now or whenever, Talos is there 24/7 to help you formulate a response and stop the bleeding. Talos boasts one of the largest staffed group of security professionals anywhere to help you in your time of crisis and will take a methodical, step-by-step approach to protect your most valuable assets in your time of crisis. They are truly world-class. And now would be the time, as we like to do, to remind you to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so that you can be assured you will never miss another upcoming episode of Let's Get SASE. So let's get down to the main event. We've got an extra special episode today and something a little different. I'd like to reintroduce our host with the most, Sarah Bloom. Sarah's got herself a great guest for everyone today. So take it away, Sarah.
Welcome back to Let's Get SASE. I'm your host, Sarah Bloom. This week's topic is solving private access with SD-WAN. We have Ryan Shoemaker as our guest of honor for this week. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, Sarah. Happy to be here. I'm very excited to spend some time talking about this very interesting topic.
So, Ryan, while there's been an explosion of internet and SaaS applications that companies use, aren't we still seeing them leverage their private data centers and public clouds to continue to deliver private applications?
Yeah, that's been an interesting shift. I think a lot of companies thought that everything was going to the cloud for a long time. So organizations would focus on how do I make sure my branch user then connect effectively towards those SaaS and internet workloads, with that being the future for everything. And I think we've seen that happen, of course, but I think we've seen a big shift towards organizations kind of stalling on that and maybe moving things and keeping sort of those private workloads sometimes inside of their data centers and staying forever. And then sometimes it's been into the public cloud space. So that transition, while SaaS and internet traffic, of course, has caused a major shift in what organizations need to face as they start looking towards securing and optimizing those connections. We've seen that's not the be-all, end-all of how we have to effectively and securely connect users to their workloads. We really have to make sure we're focusing on all use cases, and that includes the stuff that's going to stay as a private workload, both inside of a private data center, and a public cloud.
So then how do you discuss what are important considerations for customers as they think about enabling a hybrid workforce to access their applications and workloads?
So that, the whole pandemic shift, I think we were seeing a lot of remote workers happen. And then the pandemic happened, right? And users were, of course, predominantly working remotely. But this remote work that they were having and addressing users not within the walls of an organization the SaaS and internet, of course, was something that could be handled just working from home on your broadband connection, right? But there was still this, as we just talked about in the last question here, still this internal or private workload space that required a secured connection. So I think a lot of customers I talk to, organizations, are facing this challenge of how do I really exacerbate this capability of allowing my remote hybrid workers to be able to effectively still get those internal access to those applications. And at the same time, now what we've seen recently is a shift. We're moving towards the hybrid workforce, as you asked, where some organizations are having their employees come back in part of the time, a couple days a week, and basically work from home, or I'm sorry, work from the office. So they're working in both places and have to still have a consistent experience that is still secured and effectively delivered to those internal applications, regardless.
Yeah, and as more companies have had to address more of this remote workforce idea, are there changes in technologies that can provide a more optimal user experience?
So yes, absolutely right. When this happened, right, one of the things at Cisco we had to do was, of course, most organizations, almost predominantly across the globe, it was VPN, right? I have to have these remote workers now who, when the pandemic, everyone started working remotely. How do I get them access to these internal applications? And VPN was kind of the be-all, end-all of connectivity. So immediately at Cisco, we were actually spinning up, helping our customers spin up connection points that could come in for VPN access to scale the volumes that they didn't anticipate, right? And so that was one of the first things that happened. But it's one of the things that at Cisco we recognized was there are a couple of ways maybe to address this explosion of remote users trying to gain access to the private workloads. And we took a couple of tacks in this. One of the first things that we talked about doing, what we did, was basically taking the ability to provide entry points via VPN for branch offices, into these branch office connections, right? And the slide is kind of showing here, one of the things that we enabled was, what if we have customers who have already built this wide area network branch office connection to the data centers, to the public cloud space that's been created so they can get an effective connection based on application or routing, the things that newer age SD-WAN type connection technologies allowed. What if we could actually take this and use this as sort of the backdrop or the palette that we can actually connect remote users into? And because we had this infrastructure deployed, it was different regions they could actually come in. So basically, in a nutshell, we enabled SD-WAN across the sites, the branch sites, almost like regional locations that remote users could VPN into, to basically have a faster connection, a faster entry point into the private network that could then leverage the SD-WAN capabilities. So you've seen, we're talking about here in this slide, the idea around enabling software-defined remote access, for instance, on our SD-WAN environment, allowed organizations to still use VPN, which is something that most organizations knew and used and were very familiar with. And now, instead of coming back only into a centralized data center location, which may provide not a great user experience, because they were coming across the internet in order to get to the centralized location, it can be distributed out to whatever is closest to that end user. It have to be in the eastern U.S. or central or west, pick whatever. They can actually land in an entry point closest to them, and then allow the backbone that they had built over SD-WAN to effectively give them a quick connection to that private and public space, so they have a more user-friendly or a more user-optimized experience to those applications. What's interesting here also, what also evolved, as the next slide shows, is we actually had partnerships with organizations, colos or carrier-neutral facilities, whatever they call them, Megaport, Equinix, where we were able to take advantage of the infrastructure they had built and sort of create I'll call it a private backbone, so that even better, it created what we call middle mile optimizations. So these regional entry points into VPN, now those could be even more effectively delivered to the end user, because instead of traversing what would traditionally be just SD-WAN across internet or MPLS, we can actually have a faster pipe, a faster connection across these private backbones that our partners have spun up. And so it was a really good conversation and topic that we saw with our customers. But what happened, of course, was that this was one way of delivering a VPN service, but there were also customers who were looking to say, well, you know what, I might not want to manage all of this. And so something else that we've introduced is the idea of allowing that VPN as a service, that capability in the cloud, so that we could just own the infrastructure, allow our customers to create policies, but still giving them a second option for connectivity for that VPN access, so that while it still uses the internet predominantly to give the connections from remote users into private workloads, it becomes a service offering that they don't have to manage the infrastructure for. And I think our customers will like the fact that we give them options on what is going to be the best solution for them for that type of connectivity.
Right, and you mentioned many different offerings. What are you seeing as the most prominent solution that organizations are looking to provide?
Yeah, so VPN, of course, was big, right? That was the big one. But what we've certainly seen a transition towards recently, which is interesting, is that the VPN is a little more intensive on the user experience. Sometimes we like to call it creates more friction on the end user experience. And one of the things at Cisco we're really focusing on is how do we make that experience even better? How do we make it more frictionless for those end users? And so what we're finding is that while VPN is a tried and true and a proven technology, and of course effectively builds a secured connection that can deliver any application, across any port and protocol that our customers may want, to the end user, that becomes a bit of a challenge because they have to know when to enable the service. So we're starting to see more of this development of VPN-less access, browser-based with one of the primary ones, where we just start allowing browser connections to basically be honed into, I'll call it proxies, within our data centers to allow users to have that connection secured, but not have to enable VPN. So now, knowing the browser site they can go to that basically proxies to get them to an internal or a private workload was certainly a big technology that took off. I've seen a lot of discussions with customers on how can we deliver that so that user experience becomes even better. And so, I've really talked to a lot of customers about how we can continue to develop that type of solution to basically provide that more frictionless access. I think in that vein, something else that's happened is we've certainly seen a lot of interest in how can we not only provide that more frictionless experience for our end users, but also how do we provide something like what we would call a least privileged access, or sometimes a zero trust network access connection, right? I want to make sure that I don't just have you authenticate one time on VPN and go wherever you want, but rather I want to make sure that the applications you're trying to get to, you authenticate to those individually, because I want to make sure you really have the rights to gain access to that application. So I think we're seeing that shift happen from how do I, initially, pandemic, it was how do I scale this to things that are known and tried and true like VPN, towards a new transition where it's more about I need to make a better end user experience, make it more frictionless. And then secondly, I really need to look at that zero trust approach, or that least privileged access. And so that's been a lot of conversations over the last year and a half with customers, is how is Cisco working to address that ability to provide those capabilities. And I think you'll see with our Cisco Secure Access solution, we're really targeting that as the use case we're helping our customers address, those transitions towards those two key things. And if you see what we're doing in that space, you can see how we're enabling that, making it easier for the end users, as well as making it easier for the administrators of that technology to allow those connections to happen.
Right, and you mentioned secure access, but one question I keep getting from my customers is VPN still the preferred method for controlling remote access connections in private workloads? That's something that I get a lot. Cisco is a big proponent of AnyConnect. Where are we going next?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I'm finding in discussions and conversations I'm having with my customers is that most organizations, VPN is still something they have to have. They'd love to see the roadmap of transition, because VPN, as I mentioned before, provides some strong and important capabilities, but there may be better ways to address the use case or the challenges they're facing. And they'd love to see how Cisco, we can address these I think VPN is still going to be a predominant connection mechanism just because it's known and it's able to be implemented. But what's really fantastic about our secured access solution is the fact that we don't make you choose. You don't have to say, well, I want to do VPN or I want to do a ZTNA type capability. I want to be able to have the best of both worlds. And that's what we're bringing to the market with secure access, is that you can have VPN, which is known, and a lot of our customers I talk to have already deployed this and have the rules in place and have got their routing kind of in place to do these kinds of things. But at the same time, I want to look towards moving down this path, providing those enhanced capabilities for remote users through a ZTNA type solution, through again, least privileged access and allowing that to happen. And I think that the ability of secure access to provide both of them is certainly something that's very favorable for our customers because they don't have to choose. They can use both.
Right, and I think the benefit is that their employees also don't have to choose. They don't have to think about, oh, I need to turn on VPN in order to access this resource, or
right.
I need to go direct to the internet in order to access it. It's just they connect to resources.
I brought up that frictionless idea, right? How do we make it frictionless for our end users? Is exactly right. And because of the fact, if you're not aware of this, right, we're actually using that same, what used to be AnyConnect, now it's our secure, we relabeled our secure client, basically because AnyConnect used to be a requirement, VPN used to be a requirement to install it. Now everything's modularized. But that idea around secure client, being able to say, well, I wanted to have a module for VPN and a module for ZTNA and a module for secured roaming capabilities, right? Being able to have that one place and then have everything running, and then our end users don't have to choose, right? The application takes care of it for them. They just have to be able to, go to the site they're trying to get to, and the application of that module inside of secure client, talking to our secure access solution, will figure out the best way to build that connection for them. That'll provide that least privileged access and the frictionless experience we're really bringing to our customers.
All right. So we've talked a lot about VPN, but let's switch more towards actual on-prem branch devices. So organizations that are concerned with segmentation to help with IoT and other security requirements, what can SD-WAN solutions provide that will help provide the correct level of separation and security controls?
True. Yeah. I think there's certainly, what's really fascinating about this conversation topic is there really was a huge interest, and rightly so, about how do I handle my remote workers? How do I make sure they can get back into those private applications they're trying to gain access to? And sometimes I think we miss the forest from trees a bit here, and understanding that that's not the only scenario or use case that we really have to consider. As people are coming back into an office, and we see some verticals, right, predominantly in an office, we have to still keep in mind that users may be in a physical building or physical location that we're trying to provide some of these same security capabilities to. So oftentimes I'll talk to customers about the idea I could have users remote or on-premise. They're accessing applications that are remote or on-premise. But what that really means is I have to deal with users outside in, going from outside into the app, inside to the applications, inside out, right? Inside an environment, going out to the applications, or as you just talked about, inside in, right? How do I handle those that are inside going to internal applications? And I think that being able to see how we do all this, and that's the beauty, the benefits of what Cisco brings to the market, is the fact that we're not making you pick one or two of these scenarios. We're actually seeing the whole picture, making it a more holistic solution. And so we're addressing all those scenarios. So as you just asked about, what about this idea around people in an office and segmentation? Because that was something that was really top of mind and very important before the pandemic. I had users that maybe it was an employee group, maybe I had a IoT group, maybe I had a contractor group. You pick it. And the idea was I need to make sure that I'm not allowing unfettered access from someone coming into the environment to gain access to everything else internally. I had to be able to provide some form of segmentation. And actually, what we built and devised for our customers is the idea around enabling segmentation at a location. So whether it's a branch or a campus, we can actually separate those things out and provide restrictions on who can access what at a very intuitive level. And so actually, I have a slide up here is showing what we really look to address is we look to address the separation. And then as they go from, let's say, a branch site and trying to gain access to something at a data center or social location, again, inside here, do I provide a level of not just authentication, but firewalling protection mechanisms to make sure that they should be able to do that, and I'm able to do things like log against that? So what we enabled in our SD-WAN environment, it's a technology we call identity firewalling, is allowing us to understand the source, who's coming from into a branch router device, for instance, but that branch router device actually can communicate with our identity services engine. And the beauty of this is by having that integration point, we can take advantage of some of the constructs that we've had in place to allow that segmentation to be much more intuitive. Group-based policy restrictions was the key word. And we use something called scalable group tags, and these or SGTs. These SGTs basically allowed us to label a source, label a destination, decide group-based control. Should groups with a label tag, let's just call it A, be able to access resources that label group F? Yes or no? The same thing with B to F. And so being able to take this construct of SGTs and put them into our SD-WAN environment has provided a huge benefit to our customers, because now these capabilities of segmentation and then enforcing that segmentation on a firewall type environment at the edge allows us to basically provide that restricted access, least privileged access to groups for those traffic patterns that are staying inside of the environment, that inside the inside flow. A lot of our customers leveraged or used a lot of resources and time and energy to build up their environment around integrating authentication and authorization towards things like SGTs. And now that we can take that same capability and enable it as a firewall service within our SD-WAN environment, that's absolutely huge, because they can reuse the work they had already done to build out policies and things that they had in place for that internal workflow prior to the remote work explosion. And so I think that's really done a big benefit at what we've done in the SD-WAN space.
All right. Yeah, with all that said, we're nearing the end of the episode. Do you want to leave us with any specific final thoughts? Anything you want to just reiterate?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. I think I have lots and lots of conversations with customers about we'll just call it SASE in general. I'm saying the topic for the day, Secure Access Services Edge, and how do we deal with the idea around security, which typically is the forefront of the conversation, but not to be forgotten is access. So SD-WAN. The security side, of course, is, as we talk about, least privileged access. How do I make sure that users, remote or on-premise, accessing those applications are in a secured fashion? And secured from the standpoint of, I want least privileged access. I want to make sure they're not doing things they shouldn't do. I want to make sure the devices are protected. All those capabilities as part of the cornerstone of security. But at the same time, we have to be able to optimize the application delivery, which is what SD-WAN brings to us. So the two really work hand in hand to provide that best together picture. I think what we're seeing here is this introduction of a more cohesive solution. SD-WAN is certainly a more mature technology, has been around for a long time. Security in the cloud, which we're now delivering in a better way with secure access, these two coming together and building that solution. I think our customers that we talk to have to really think about the big picture on both of these coming together to provide, as I'm trying to define here. It's not just one specific use case, the remote access users coming into things, but we really have to have them look at the big picture of everything, remote, on-premise, and those workloads remote on-premise, that outside in, inside out, inside in, right? You pick all the different flows and being able to have an entire architecture that will deliver all of those capabilities to them to provide not just security, but application delivery optimization at the same time. I think that's really what we have to make sure that organizations, the customers really keep top of mind as they consider what they want to do as they go down this path towards a new architecture, with these changes happening.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time today to talk with us about this topic.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. It's been fun. Hopefully there's some good information out there, and I appreciate the time.
Hey, Sarah, thanks for that. That was some great content. I think that's about all the time we have today. I'd really like to thank Sarah and Ryan for those insights into private access It looks like Cisco can really help you get to your application securely with a minimum of administrative hassle. If you have any questions or want to dig deeper into SASE, your Cisco sales team is the place to go. They can help you along your journey to SASE, no matter where you might be. Tune in next time for our next episode, where we're going to dig into how SASE can integrate with your Meraki products that so many of you love. Should be a good one. So until next time, I'm your SASE MC John. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you right here soon for the next episode of Let's Get SASE. See you soon.